Hi there. In this video today, we're going to talk about integrating with the Office 365 APIs into your Visual Studio 2015 projects. My name is Jeremy Thake. I'm a technical product manager within the Office 365 team here in Redmond, and we focus on the extensibility story of our platform running in the cloud, but also on premises as well. You can reach out to me on jeremythake.com or follow me on Twitter at @jthake. We'll walk through a bit of an introduction about what these APIs would mean to you as a developer, and then we'll jump into a demo to show you how you can do these things in Visual Studio, and then we'll finish off with a bunch of resources to help you understand exactly how you can get started with this stuff on your own development environment. So Office 365 is one of the fastest growing businesses in Microsoft's history. We've focused a lot with productivity within small businesses and enterprise businesses to make it easy for people to have this kind of virtual office within their organization, whether it be from mail or calendar or contacts that you collaborate on in a day-to-day point of view, or sharing files within our OneDrive for Business product, or collaborating in our Office 365 Groups technology, having conversations with special expert areas within your organization. And then lastly, in terms of focusing on this delve aspect of seeing all the activities that are happening within your organization that stitches all those different things together and allows you to consume those things in notification style through your mobile devices on iOS or Android, or also on Windows. So it's been a very successful time for us, and it's going to be great that we've extended our API surface layer to allow you guys to connect to it from your Visual Studio projects. Now, Satya is also very kind of excited about this, saying it's the most strategic developer surface area for us at Microsoft. And the main reason that he believes this is because it starts to tie together all the activities that are happening inside the organization, but then brings that into play with your web applications or the mobile applications that you're building inside Visual Studio 2015. So with that, we want to be able to tie this idea of taking the data that your system's creating, whether it be an invoice tracking system or an HR request system, or maybe you're doing kind of like employee leave type applications. We really want you to be able to connect into your data into our data, whether it's sending mail appointments to those employees or sending emails to those employees using our Exchange Online services, and then therefore not having to build those things into your products yourselves and bolting our platform into your applications. Now, there's been a lot of usage of Office 365 already. We have over 1.2 billion users of Office globally across the ecosystem, and about 100+ million downloads of our mobile applications, both on the iPad, which are released as in Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, but also on Android as well. So we reach not only those two mobile device technologies, but also have the ability to connect to people that install Office on the desktop or simply run it in the browser as well. Now, the average person spends about 2 to 3 days inside of the Office applications. And so being able to be part of that Office experience and extending Outlook, for instance, to have your own task panes in there with your web application running inside it is very compelling to you guys, and it gives you great reach into your business users, servicing up your customizations. And there's two main kind of schools of thought we have around extending Office. We have this ability of extending our user experience, whether it be Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, or connecting to our data through the APIs, whether that be mail, calendar, contacts, or the Files API. And in the future, it'll be things like the Office Graph, which powers Delve, or it could be things such as the Groups API that allows you to kind of stitch into conversations that are being had within that Groups experience in the browser and also in Office 2016. So it's a really exciting time for you guys to leverage those two tracks. And so what I wanted to show you today was like some of that extensibility there across this unified endpoint that's available at graph.microsoft.com. So at graph.microsoft.com is one single endpoint that allows you to connect not just to mail, calendar, contacts, and files, but also off to things like Azure Active Directory users and groups. So because Office 365 is basically based on the underlying authentication authorization of Azure Active Directory, we can hook not just the Office 365 APIs in there, but also Azure Active Directory and Groups and Office Graph, and a bunch of other endpoints as well inside of our Office 365 platform. And in the future, we'll be able to actually connect through to things like the Dynamics CRM APIs, all from that one single endpoint. So it's a very exciting time, and we encourage you guys to get familiar with understanding Azure Active Directory Auth, how to connect to this API endpoint, and how to then pull that data back. So in this demo, I'm going to describe to you how you can use Visual Studio 2015 and the Add Connected Services wizard to actually connect through to those services and pull that data back into your ASP.NET web application projects. Okay, so I've just got Microsoft Visual Studio 2015 open here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to the File menu and just create a new project. Now, what we've improved since 2013 here is the streamlined process of kind of adding authentication into our projects here. So when I just go and create a new web application project here, an ASP.NET web application, I would just give it a quick title here, Connect O365 APIs, and I click OK. I'm going to get a wizard up here and I can pick what type of template I want to use with ASP.NET 4.6 here. In this case, I'm going to use a model view controller, an MVC project. And the difference here is what I want to do is actually create a authentication hook when I'm actually creating this at the start. So when you're in this experience, what I can do here is click to either use an individual account or a work and school account. Now in a work and school account, you can see here it's remembered the tenant name that I used in the past with this Office 365 environment. It allows me to hook into the Active Directory for my Office 365 tenant by default. And when I do this and click OK, and then I click OK here, it's going to go away, it's going to create me that project, but it's going to prompt me to sign in to Visual Studio. So this is just because I'm going to hook in here from a licensing perspective. So I'm just going to quickly do this. And then what it's going to do, it's going to ask me to publish to Azure Web Applications as well. So I'm not going to need a database for this. I'm just going to run this in Azure. So I'm going to click OK here. That is now going to go away and create that project inside of my local laptop here and wire it up for Azure Active Directory. And what you'll see here is it's going away, it's adding all the NuGet packages directly into the references of my project. It's published that, in actual fact, all the way up to Azure, so it's ready to go. And so as I go through and make changes here and right-click and publish, it's going to be wiring those things to the cloud directly. Now, the benefit of this from a developer workflow perspective is that now when I'm building this application with the Office 365 API integration, I can test locally on my machine on localhost, but maybe I want someone else to test it to see what it looks like as well. And by providing them the URL to the Azure instance, you can do that very easily. So my project's all wired up now. If I F5 this now, essentially what's going to happen, and I'm just going to pick Chrome as my browser here, is it's going to deploy and package that, and then it will launch that in my Chrome experience on my local host here running under HTTPS. Now as it does that, what you're going to notice is on the right-hand side of this default template is that I'm already wired in and logged in here. So you can see here that I'm logged into my tenant with my Azure Active Directory credentials. Now that's something that previously you had to kind of wire in manually yourself. So this is a great way of seeing now that it's done all that wiring for you by default. So if we now go back to Visual Studio here, I'm just going to stop this so that we can actually get back into the editing mode. And there is a feature that was in 2013, but we've improved upon this now because it takes advantage of this experience with the Azure Active Directory, and it's called the Add Connected Services experience. So I right-click on my web application project, and you can do exactly the same thing in a Xamarin or a Cordova project or a Windows Form project as well. And I'll just go to Add, and I'll go to this Connected Services. Now, we've improved this wizard and we've made it more extensible now because we have other services other than Office 365 in here. Now for the Office 365 API to install in here, you'll have to make sure you've clicked the Office Development Tools when you're doing the install of Visual Studio. If you didn't do that, you can go back into Add Remove Programs and you can do a reconfiguration of Visual Studio and click that component so that it is lit up in this experience. You can see also I can hook into Azure Storage here, Azure Mobile Services, and Application Insights directly from this one wizard. And we can go away and find more services as well. So I'm going to configure this now. And when I do this, the first time I do this for the web application project, it's actually going to prompt me to sign in to Office 365. And when I sign in here, I'm just going to simply go through and put in my Office 365 credentials for my developer tenant and put in my password. And that's now going to connect up to the Office 365 platform, and it's going to find out what services are available. And in this case, it said that it noticed that this web application isn't registered in Azure Active Directory for me right now, and therefore that I need to go and register this. So I'm just going to click yes. That will actually add an entry into Azure Active Directory applications within the management portal of Azure and pull back into my project a client ID and secret that is then used to call into Office 365. Now the available services here are Calendar, Contacts, Mail, My Files, Sites, and Users and Groups. And you can see already that by default, because we've already done the single sign-on with this web application on first creating the project, that we're in read mode. But what if I wanted to go and access my files, for instance? Well, when I go and click on permissions here, I can say I want to be able to read and write to the user's files of the person who's logged into this experience. Or for instance, for mail, if I go to permissions, I want to be able to read that user's inbox. I want to be able to send mail as that individual. So rather than using a third-party mail component or an SMTP server, I can just use the mail API of Office 365 to send it as the person I'm logged into. In this case, jthake at appdev365.onmicrosoft.com. And then likewise, I might want to, for instance, go into the user's calendar and look at the available times of that person within their workday, and then make some business decisions within my application to allow the user of the web application to pick, to schedule a meeting with particular users within that organization. Or for instance, if they're using SharePoint internally, maybe they want to be able to read and write the files that are stored within SharePoint inside that business application as well. And you can actually do this not just for documents and files, but also list data as well. So maybe you've got some strongly typed list there with content types and site columns, and you want to be able to store that data directly in SharePoint. And as I click Add here, what that's going to do now is it's going to go and pull down all the NuGet packages from the internet down into my project and all of the Office 365 DLLs. Now the reason it does that is because it allows me then to very, very simply go through and start coding against that API in a very simple way to go and call into mail, calendar, contacts, files, or users and groups. And you'll see here that when you spin it up, you'll get a nice document here that explains exactly what you need to do to get this stuff working inside of your projects. And you can follow this through to see, for instance, things like how to go and get to your contacts information, and then what you need to do inside the try-catch to actually call that discovery service to get the context endpoint information, and then actually use the Outlook services client here to then call through with the use of that access client to get the contacts, and in this case, add a contact into a list view here and render that on the screen. So I have an example already plumbed together just in the process of time here where we've done this already. So in my controller here, if I look at my Files controller, let's make this nice and big here, you'll see that when I'm scrolling down, the lines of code are very, very easy to write. Simply, I've got a list in my view here, which is where I'm going to store my files in a strongly typed way. I'm getting the information that's already captured as part of the web application because of the plumbing that we've done when we've created this project, and I'm grabbing that authentication context. Now, I have to connect to the discovery service because what I want to do is I want to find out what the unique endpoint is for whatever service I'm hitting based on the Office 365 tenant I'm going to, because this does differ depending on what environment you're in. So this makes sure that you're nice and safe. In coming months, we'll actually have a unified API endpoint that you'll be able to use with that wizard. That means you will no longer need to use a discovery service. But for now, you'll need to use that. And again, it's all documented and very easy to use in that sense. Now, what this does essentially is it will return a access token that I can then use to actually go through using my SharePoint client object here. And all I want to do using the endpoint that was returned by my discovery service, which in most cases would be something like appdev365.sharepoint.com/_API, allows me then to go back and call and get the files that are available in that SharePoint site into this result collection. And then simply all I'm going to do is iterate through all the files that came back in that collection and add them to my files collection, which is then bound to that view within my MVC. So if I spin this up now in Chrome, you'll notice that like the other experience of that other application that we just quickly built from scratch in that wizard, is that what I can actually do now is very simply notice that I'm logged in, I'm authenticated in automatically. And now when I click on My Files, which was the view that we created, or I just walked through there in that sample project, is that's going to go away, call that files service, and then return that collection of files in here. So you can see here that it's basically returned, in this instance, my end user's OneDrive for Business site collection and returned all the files that are available in that site and all the documents here. And then I could go through and in this instance have edit views here for my files and be able to go through and see more details about those individual files using that Files API as well. So again, it's extremely easy to kind of configure and set these things up using that API. And the nice thing about the SharePoint client is that it's all using IntelliSense. So when I come through here and use these managed classes, if I stop the debugging, is that all of my endpoints have got availability in here to find out what's available inside of these collections and how we call these things and how I can iterate through and do paging in a very, very simple way. Now, you don't have to use these SDKs that come as part of Visual Studio. So what this has done is, in actual fact, has created a bunch of DLLs or added a bunch of DLLs in here underneath Office 365. So you can see here that we've got the SharePoint and the Outlook services, and essentially allows you to go and kind of, it's wrapped these things up for you so that they're strongly typed. But you could just call these things directly with REST depending on your preferences. So these APIs will happily work in a web HTML and JavaScript approach using cores across our Origin resource libraries to essentially allow you to connect those things on a client side and not in this manner on the server side using MVC. So hopefully this demo has highlighted how easy it is to get started with adding in Office 365 API integration into your existing web applications. But also please remember this is supported not just inside ASP.NET, but also in web forms and WinForms and Xamarin on Cordova as well. So hopefully that's given you a good idea about how easy it is to actually integrate with the Office 365 APIs inside your Visual Studio projects. Now, in addition to that new IDE experience, the other thing that we've got going is a dev program on Office 365. So if you go head over to dev.office.com/dev program, you'll be able to sign up for this program and you'll be able to communicate to us via email newsletters where we'll push out more news around what's going on inside this space. We also have a free developer tenant subscription that you can actually use as part of this free year, which is usually the value of about $100 US. And we also provide free training in the means of on-demand webinars that you can attend, as well as hands-on labs and on-demand videos that you can watch like an hour long that will go through this kind of level of detail higher than what we can do in these videos today. In addition to that, we also give away some licenses to some products that we know you as developers will find useful. So for instance, we give you a Telerik UI Kendo JavaScript toolkit that you can use within your Office add-ins, whether it be for Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, or you can use it in your own web applications as well. And also a drip subscription, which allows you to do email marketing campaigns, but based on the usage of your applications. So for instance, if your application has a login screen, then it has a sign-up screen to get more information off your users, and then there's a few features, it'll actually track what features that user is using and communicate with them on a scheduled basis to try and encourage them to use other features within your products. So it's a great free subscription that you guys get as part of joining that dev program for free, and I highly encourage you guys to go over at dev.office.com/dev program to do that. In addition to those resources, we have a great Office 365 network which is hosted on Yammer that allows you to discuss with us inside engineering in Redmond. So as you have your questions, and we'll get the answers either direct through our immediate team, but also we'll often hook in engineers that can talk to you as well and get more information of exactly what problems you're having or some questions you have around some new features. As well as that, you can actually go over to User Voice, where if there is an API endpoint that you think's missing or you'd like some extra features on it, you can actually go and submit your ideas at User Voice and encourage the community to vote up those ideas. And the engineers actually have regular meetings to actually discuss moving those things over to that backlog and actually getting those inside of the products. And we are actively listening a lot of the times. In addition to the Yammer network, you can actually go and connect through to Stack Overflow, where I'm assuming you guys are living all day, and just use the ms-office tag. This allows you to kind of ask questions with the broader community, and our engineers actually jump on that community as well and make sure that your questions are being answered as well. And then please, from a social perspective, follow us on @OfficeDev on Twitter and on Facebook. And if you want to hear more on a more frequent basis, I actually personally run a weekly pod show where I'll interview a bunch of engineers from across Redmond and experts that are out there in the web communities and mobile communities to talk to them about what they're doing with Office 365. So I hope you found this video useful. Please reach out to us on dev.office.com for more information about the Office 365 platform and how you can develop on top of the Microsoft stack.